Now introducing Deputy Leader for the Green Party of Ontario and candidate for University Rosedale, Dianne Saxe.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much and welcome to beautiful University Rosedale, the constituency of the next Green MPP. Got to join Mike at Queen's Park. Anyway, we're gathered here together in the center of Toronto. This is the ancestral home and present home of many Indigenous peoples and still is today. In addition, this is the dish with one spoon territory, which reminds us that the natural world that we share is precious. We have to take turns and share what is here and look after it together. And that's a lesson we all need. We're here today to talk about young people and climate change. Climate changes everything. We've already reached the point where the best case scenario during the lifetime of today's young people is widespread death and suffering because of climate change. And the worst case is humanity on the brink of extinction. But the crazy thing is, there is still a little window to make things better, for Ontario to be winners in the new climate economy, for us to create hundreds of thousands of jobs right here, clean the air, improve health, make the city a more beautiful place to live in. And we can do all of that and get ourselves free of big oil and keep more money in the Ontario economy. And who is this going to matter to the most? Young people alive today, people my age. We're not going to live through everything that's coming our way, but the young people do. So they deserve to have a say. They deserve to have their voice heard. They deserve to have their future looked after. And that's where I'm looking to Mike Schreiner, our leader, winner of last night's debate, hands down, the wonderful Mike Schreiner.
Thank you so much, Dianne, and thank you all for joining us this morning. It is clear that it is now or never to address the climate emergency. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has made that absolutely clear. And yet Doug Ford wants to pave over our children's future. And in last night's debate, I was the only party leader that talked substantively about how to address the climate crisis and ensure that our children, grandchildren, and the young people of this province have a livable future. You know, they don't want half measures or no measures. They want new solutions to old problems. They want real solutions to addressing the climate emergency. They don't want the farmland that will feed them paved over, the wetlands that protect us from flooding paved over. They want affordable homes, not highways. They want to make sure that we have high quality education and access to healthcare. They want to make sure that post-secondary education is actually affordable. And when Doug Ford last night talked about young people wanting jobs, yeah, they want jobs in the new climate economy, where most of the job growth is, 65 million jobs in green technology, green innovation, and climate ready businesses between now and 2030. And the question is, will Ontario lead or will we follow? And so if we're going to lead, we need young people at the table. The climate movement is energized by youth. The future of our province is energized by youth. And one of the reasons the Ontario Greens are pushing hard to lower the voting age to 16 is that we believe young people in this province need a more powerful and forceful voice where decisions are being made. And that's exactly what the Ontario Greens are going to continue to push for, working with, advocating with, and joining the youth climate movement to lead the change we need in this province. I'm now happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll start with any questions from the floor.
Good morning, Mike. Reading and following some of the post-debate analysis and commentary from last night, it's pretty common that people were quite high on your performance, but a lot of that commentary comes with the caveat that, well, this doesn't matter because the Greens aren't going to win any seats. They're not going to win the election. With that kind of being the common thought, we're two-ish weeks out. How do you plan to tell voters, or how do you plan to sell to voters, your party, your candidates that you're high on, with that, being the common narrative?
Well, first of all, there are over 2 weeks left in this campaign. And for everyone last night who said the Ontario Greens won the debate, I would say if you want green, vote green. Vote for Dianne Saxe in University Rosedale. Vote for Matt Richter in Parry Sound, Muskoka. Vote for Laura Campbell and Dufferin Caledon. Vote for Abhijit Manet and Beaches East York. We have strong green candidates all across this province who are ready to lead, ready to build the Ontario you want, the future that our young people need. And so if you want an Ontario that's caring, connected, healthy, and climate ready, the Ontario Greens are ready to lead. And we can start by electing Ontario's former Environment Commissioner, Dianne Saxe, who Doug Ford fired the wrong Environment Commissioner. And it is clear when it comes to climate action, we need Dianne's strong, clear-eyed voice at Queen's Park.
And the other thing I'd say about this is I've now been talking to voters in this riding for a year and a half. And we are hearing a lot of enthusiasm. We are hearing a lot of momentum. We are hearing some surprise that there is so much enthusiasm and momentum. If you go through the riding, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of signs, and there's more every day. So this is a winnable riding. This is a riding where people are really conscious of the stakes that we're facing on climate. We're in a riding where people really care about our leading housing policy and our groundbreaking mental health policy. And we're in a riding where people are really distressed about the conduct of the NDP, both in their voting for the $1 billion a year giveaway to cars and the fact that the financing for their climate plan makes no sense and couldn't work. So these are things that we're hearing all the time are changing people's minds. So we're going to win University of Rosedale.
Philip?
And Mike, as you mentioned earlier too, climate and climate policy wasn't something that too much of the debate was spent on. I think there was one question on it, but nevertheless, it was certainly not a focus. Do you feel that if we're at a different time of the year, perhaps later in the summer, when we tend to have forest fires in this country, that you would have a better shot in this election, and timing has something to do with, possibly the lack of success that your party might have?
Well, I don't understand why you're presupposing the election results 2.5 weeks before the election, when we have so much momentum coming out of this debate, and Dianne Saxe is rocketed here at University of Rosedale, and we're doing so well across the province. But I will say that, as we speak right now in Northwestern Ontario, the flood season's already started. I mean, people in Kenora tragically were evacuated from their homes. It was just last summer that 6 First Nations communities had to be evacuated due to the forest fires. There was a week last year where the air quality in Southern Ontario was some of the worst in the world due to the forest fires in the north here in Ontario and the winds blowing that dirty air from British Columbia. We have to act on the climate emergency. People know it. The other leaders may not want to talk about it. And I would say there were 2 key issues that I don't think would have been raised at all in last night's debate if we didn't have an Ontario Green MPP and the Ontario Greens were not on the stage. The first being a real plan to address the climate crisis. And the second, the absolute need to end legislative poverty in this province. I was the only party leader to talk about addressing the climate emergency with real solutions. and tackling poverty by doubling social assistance rates. And some other parties may be starting to follow our lead, but the reality is, if we have more green MPPs, we can influence the conversation in a way that builds the Ontario you want, providing new solutions to old problems.
Anything else from the floor? All right, we're good from the floor. So Jess will go.
Okay, we'll now take questions on Zoom. A reminder, please use your raise hand function. The first question comes from Karina.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you, Mike and Dianne. Karina Stiff, freelance reporter working on a story for Canada's National Observer. My question's on a bit of a different topic. The Ontario Clean Air Alliance recently surveyed 4 party leaders about electricity generation, and the Ontario Greens response said you're committed to phasing out gas-fired electricity generation by 2030. So my first question is, how would you address issues of affordability and reliability to ensure reliable electricity at a cost Ontarians can afford?
Well, first of all, I would say the greatest, and I'm going to turn this question over to Dianne in a second here, but one of the advantages Ontario has right now in the new climate economy is the fact that our electricity grid is so clean. So companies that want to establish production facilities, particularly around manufacturing, and want to be net zero, Ontario is a great place to set up and do business. As we look to drive fossil fuels out of our transportation and building sectors in particular, Ontario is incredibly well positioned with a clean grid, but we do know that we will have to increase electricity generation. And given the rapid decline in the costs of both solar and wind in particular, and storage options, Ontario is well positioned to significantly increase electricity supply that is clean, affordable, and renewable. And we also know that by electrifying transportation, will significantly reduce cost of living for folks. Driving an electric vehicle saves the average driver about $2,000 a year. We just need a government that's going to make them affordable for folks. Living in communities where you can walk and cycle safely is actually the lowest cost form of transportation. Rapidly ramping up electrified public transit so we can triple transit use in the next decade will not only help people save money, it'll significantly crush climate pollution. And finally, by helping homeowners and renters and small businesses retrofit their buildings to save money by saving energy and getting fossil fuels out of our buildings, will not only help them save money, but significantly reduce climate pollution. Dianne is one of the top experts on energy policy in the province of Ontario and, quite frankly, around the world. So I'm going to ask her to elaborate on this question.
Well, in addition to the big picture that Mike gave you, let's go back to your specific question about electricity supply. The short answer is that a hugely disproportionate part of the cost of providing electricity in Ontario comes from meeting peak needs. And we only have peak needs a small percentage of the time, usually on hot summer afternoons. So one big thing we can do to bring down the per unit cost of electricity is to flatten our peaks. Solar is really good at that. Conservation is really good at that. Using time of use pricing so that people use more electricity at night is really good at that. And I'll tell you something else that's really good at that, and it's electric vehicles. Electric vehicles that charge at night and that have bidirectional charges to help meet the peak will make our whole electricity supply less expensive, more robust, and more responsive for the people of Ontario. And we've shown in our plan how we do it. We're the only party with a serious climate plan. And one of the ways you know that is that we're the only party that's showing how we can replace fossil fuels that cost us $1 trillion every generation, with electricity that we make right here in Ontario, and that also cleans the air, improves health, and will make us more independent when bad things happen internationally. We can do it here in Ontario.
Thanks so much. I just have a quick follow-up question. Could you see Ontario's existing gas plants being used as a source of backup electricity beyond 2030?
Well, if you look at our plan, you'll see what we say. Well, the first thing is we know that proper carbon pricing, if the gas plants have to pay the carbon price, all of their pollution, then they will only be used for extreme events, which is exactly what we should do for them with them. And you'll see in our plan, we do say that they are useful after 2030 for backup in extreme circumstances. We're not going to tear them down. But that doesn't mean we should use them when we don't need them. And most of the time we don't need them, and we wouldn't use them unless we had this messed up pricing system.
Thanks so much.
Okay, that concludes our questions on Zoom. Back to you, Mike.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. And I want to say to the young people of this province, I know so many of you are worried about our future. And I want you to know that in the Ontario Green Party, you have a party that has your back, that is all about empowering youth to have a stronger political voice in this province, because the decisions and the choices we're making in this election will directly affect your future and your quality of life. That's why we're pushing hard to lower the voting age to 16 to give you a stronger voice in the political system. But I want to say to each and every one of you, while we're on the journey to making that change, your voice can make a huge difference in this election. Young voters represent about 1/3 of the electorate now. You have the power to change the future of this province. And I'm asking you to vote for the future that you want. A climate-ready Ontario that is here to ensure that you have a livable, prosperous, wonderful, healthy, beautiful province to live in, not one in which the Premier is focused on paving over the places we love. Thank you everyone for joining us today.